AU 3.24, or the patch formerly known as 3.23.1b. It's around the corner. It'll change how you get going in the verse, and you might need to rethink where you make your usual primary residence. Plus, you're going to want to do some homework in 3.23 before the new patch drops. It'll make you say, oh, that dig. Take a walk with me. Like up, sub up, and ring up like a boss. Alright, before we begin, let me hit you with some of the major things keeping 3.24 from hitting Wave 1 PTU.
Hangar doors not opening. Quantum travel rubber banding you back in the direction you came from. Getting teleported from your hangar to random places in space. Invisible elevators, which is kind of cool because you get to see exactly how they travel to the next elevator bank. Medium-sized ship hangars crying havoc and unleashing the bugs of war. Ships getting impounded in players' own hangars. This has been your 3.24 bug report brought to you by Lucky Strikeouts. If you've only had 2 near brushes with bad health, get yourself a pack of Lucky Strikeouts.
You know how everybody runs out the habs in their noob suits, stands outside the hab entrance and starts stripping and putting armor on? You won't see much of that anymore. Easy is just to get dressed right in the comfort of your room. You can still do it though, kinda, but instead of exhibitionist nudity right in front of the habs, you'll be getting dressed at the storage access points you've seen peppered all over major landing zones and space stations. The interface is pretty simple. Select the items you want from the storage warehouse, then click a button to send them to the drawer. And from the drawer, you start equipping your gear, which is an extra 2 steps from the current version of just equipping everything from your local inventory. It takes a little longer than the placeholder inventory system you've become accustomed to, but it does bring the added benefit of requiring some planning on your part. And from the time you dip your toes from under the bed sheets onto the cold floor of your room to the moment you take off in your ship, planning ahead is the name of the game in 3.24 and beyond. Let me walk you through it. Once you move all your stuff from the warehouse to the drawer, and from the drawer onto your body, you don't want to have to go back to the storage access point. You want to get it all done in one go. Otherwise, it really feels like that damn it moment when you walk out your real house and have to go back in because you forgot your shades, and then again because you left your bottle of water next to where your keys were sitting. That annoyance at forgetting something you need is real, because every time you realize you left something behind, you have to walk to a storage point, re-access the interface, find the item in your warehouse inventory, send it to the drawer, access the drawer, then drop it in your backpack or equip it. And right now during Evocati testing, if you accidentally close the UI before it's in your bag, it disappears out the drawer and you gotta start all over. Maybe that'll change. I'm describing it with a fair amount of detail, so in practice it's not as bad as it sounds, but it's a lot more involved than conjuring your inventory out of thin air anywhere you happen to be. And as you've seen in 3.23, these item kiosks are everywhere, including the new Babbage Kelto shop where they replaced my beloved refrigerated displays. It used to look like a proper bodega. Now there's 2 slot machine looking kiosks where the food was at. Anyway, you eventually make your way to your personal hangar, which has been a love-hate affair. It's Evocati. We're in there taking the L's so you don't have to. There's just been intermittent problems with your hangar not appearing on the elevator buttons, which prevents you from accessing it. Then sometimes you do access it and the terminals in it won't work. I have a whole new appreciation for what the avocados have had to dig through in previous patches before my time. So you're down in your hangar, you got some choices to make depending on what's in your fleet, what's on the agenda when you leave, and what you'll need to bring to accomplish it. Normally, you just start pulling things out of the inventory like store all boxes, food and drink, tools and attachments. But now you got to do the same thing you did when you were gearing yourself up, except you're putting it on your freight elevator, which I gotta say is pretty dandy, but there's those extra steps again. But this is the immersion and fully physicalized universe we've been moonwalking with elegance toward through years of development. There's gonna be a lot of people resisting this change, just like they do with every addition to the game, but this was the plan, peoples.
You're going to choose your starting location of Area 18, and then the ships that you have at Area 18, you'll have a hangar there that comes with your starting, location selection, right? And that's now your hangar. Instead of hangar 27, it's, Rob's hangar, Rob's medium hangar, whatever.
That's exactly how it looks now. Your name's medium hangar or whatever size you have.
What we want to build is this concept of a freight elevator that is tied to whoever's using it. So when you use it, you see your local inventory stored at Area 18. When I use it, I see mine. So now what you get is the ability for you to bring your cargo out into my hangar, load it on my ship. We can collectively work together as a group to then load the ship up with a series of goods, take it to another location, and then go and sell it. So we thought that was a really important factor to hit.
We're not going to be magically spawning the cargo into your ship whenever you purchase cargo. Instead, it's going to be purchased into the hangar, and you'll be calling it from this freight elevator, and then manually moving it in and out of the kind of staging space into the ship, right? So this is part of, I mentioned before that we're trying to localize the cargo more. This is part of that, where we're getting rid of the magic. No more popping in and out of existence. Instead, they're physical things. They have to be moved. Of course, in the future, this is going to set us up for systems such as maybe drones or NPCs that you can hire to help you move these things. But for now, the idea is that you can move them yourself using the multi-tool, or you can bring in your friends. And so, this is one way in which people that are playing together will have an advantage over players that are just playing by themselves, because there's a certain amount of throughput that you'll be able to achieve with a larger crew, which will increase your financials.
That's right.
As opposed to as a single player. So it's kind of bringing that, multiplayer, interactive, diegetic, physical gameplay into the cargo system.
You all laughed at the trolleys. You said the trolleys were silly. No, Chad is already talking about an LTI forklift.
Before you get to loading items though, here's what you got to consider. If you got a large or extra large hangar, the first thing you should be pulling out is a golf cart or a small hover bike, because these hangars are huge and the vehicle makes it easier to get around. Plus, it's just kind of dope to finally put a golf cart to work in your hangar. And yes, you can pull out any of your ground vehicles in your personal hangar instead of having to fly to some outpost and then loading it up on your ship. This makes those few extra steps from earlier gearing up and everything worth it by so much. Big time saver, man. So if you want to take a ground vehicle with you, now's the time to grab it and set it to the side, which leads back to the statement about rethink and reset your primary residence at. So between all 4 major landing zones in Stanton, there's 2 type of hangars right now. The beige self-land looking hangars at Area 18 and Laurelville, and the newer, crisper looking AeroView hangars at New Babbage and Orison. For the most part, they're pretty much the same dimensions, except the AeroView hangars have these nice extra rooms on the side. What good is that, you ask? Well, your hangar ship elevator takes up damn near the entire breadth of the hangar. When it's activated, there's enough room to move around in it, but not by a whole lot. You start sea walking on the side without tying your shoes, you might fall in, which means there's not much room for parking your ground vehicles unless you have one of these side rooms to pull your whip up in. It's kind of like this, but has more room to park in. It's a good extra amount of parking space that you just don't get with the other hangar. You could just use the freight elevator to park in, but then you can't use your freight elevator. You can park most of the vehicles on the side in these hangars, and there is a smaller room that gives you a bit more space, but it's just not the same as having a couple areas to use as dedicated parking spaces where your vehicles aren't at all in the way. I like to do some trading that requires putting an Argo tractor ship inside a Hercules, so for some ship inside ship action, that extra space is clutch. And if you plan on doing that or having multiple large vehicles that they're ready to load up, Laurelville and Area 18 might not work out for you anymore, man. Area 18's always been my home. It's got the best selection of hand and ship weapons and armor in one place, but I guess it's time to pack it up and move out the neighborhood. What will be a nice quality of life upgrade to what's there is a button to reset the hangar, so we don't have to wait for the elevator to go down while the top closes and then the hangar coming back up and the top opening back up. Takes about 1:43 for the whole animation, but only 49 seconds when the elevator's already lowered. Something to consider. Since we have these beautiful new freight elevators, it would be nice to find clues out in the field that lead you to an NPC that sells unique items out of a specific hangar that you have to be invited to. Or maybe a single-use item with a location written on it, something you looted or on the bottom of a littered soda can that grants you one-time access to the hangar. There's room for so many activities. Think about it, CIG. Think about it. We were told smaller cargo ships would be in play with the cargo missions, and they are. At least at the beginning. The initial missions have you carrying a handful of boxes from one port to another. And by handful, I mean at least 6 SCU. Mostly I've seen more along the lines of 10, 11 SCU missions, which already puts the light freight ships out of contention to run them. The light freight ships are the Drake Cutter, 135C, Aurora CL, Reliant Core, Gotox Yulin, Avenger Titan, and Titan Renegade. But if you catch a 6 SCU mission, the Cutter's still on the sideline, but the other ships can come out to play. So I'm hoping they'll put smaller load missions in for those ships, but maybe that's their way of having the new players work their way through the earlier game loops first, instead of skipping over them to go straight to space trucking, in which case that's probably not a bad idea. Side note, the Drake Mules still can't pick up boxes, so no help with loading there. And at the time of writing, the hover trolleys still haven't been put back in the test servers after they were taken out because they didn't work. I feel like they've forgotten about the mule, which is a shame that a cargo moving vehicle is useless for moving cargo. But I imagine by the time 3.24 releases, the hover trolley at least will be back on its hover feet. Looks like the way to make money with cargo missions is going to be to treat it like a gig worker. You get paid for your one missions, but to really shine, you need to take a look at everything available and try to stuff as many orders in your ship as you can that are moving in the same direction. Working smarter, not harder, people. Obviously, trade is significantly different now. So you own it, you load it. Since the commodities you buy are going to the warehouse instead of your ship, you've not only got to decide how much you're going to spend, you got the option for what size containers you want them in. Obviously, you don't want all 1 SCU containers or you'll be loading, unloading all day long. You're going to have to know your ship grids and do a little math to make sure you get just the right size and quantity of containers so that you don't get containers that won't fit and you get just the right combination of sizes to fill up your entire ship. To make life a little easier on your calculator fingers, you can load up 3.23 right now. Go load up your ships with something cheap like scrap or waste, then record what size boxes are being used to get a perfect fit. Then you'll be ready to roll for 3.24. Or you can just choose automated loading and pay extra for the time that you save. Right now, the loading time is fast, 3 minutes 20 seconds for 100 size 1 SCU boxes. It's even faster if you use bigger boxes. This will definitely be balanced in the future. It doesn't tell you how much you're paying for the privilege, but unless it's an outrageous amount, there's no reason not to choose auto load every time. Finally, we can tow away abandoned ships that are in the way, whether they're in an armistice zone or not. I would love to see some missions dynamically generate for that, maybe in the future, but for now, I would be happy to offer SRV owners and other tractor beam ops credits to put their ships to work clearing out landing pads. Just like there's no more magic inventory in major landing zones, it's the same at outposts, except at outposts, there's no storage access points. So if you dig through the boxes and find some loot you want to hold on to, there's no built-in way to consolidate and transfer it to your ship. In 3.23, just throw it in a local inventory, hop on your ship, and transfer it across inventories. Now, if you find several items that don't fit in your backpack, you have to carry them out one at a time. You can't drag a store-all box through the outpost because tractor beams don't work outside the landing pads. Same thing on board your ship. No magic ship inventory, so you can either make use of the store-all boxes, use up any storage compartments within the ship, or just leave it on the flow like a savage. Now would be a good time to get the suit lockers functioning because storage space is now at a premium. Despite what this guy thinks, the new cargo elevators are everywhere you buy cargo at, except for the drug labs at this point, but those will be in later. And where there's no armistice, aka green zone protection, gotta keep your head on a swivel. We're on our own for trade in pyro in any place that has no green zone, but that makes sense. You want to trade in dangerous territory, it's your risk to take.
How do you plan to protect the player's ship from someone coming on board during a manual loading process and flying away?
The bigger question is, how are you going to protect your ship and your cargo that's being loaded and unloaded on your ship? Who are you going to work with to make that a safe thing? To me, that's where multiplayer gameplay just shines, right? And it's, you want to hire some friends. Eventually, we want to have NPCs that you can hire. Maybe your reputation's high enough where turrets at the station will actually help protect you, right? So you're going to see reputation being tied into a lot more things as we move forward.
Going back to outposts, they have freight elevators on the landing pads now, so you buy your commodities, go to the landing pad, and have the elevator pull up your cargo. What I have been trying to figure out since this has been announced is, what's the plan to prevent people from taking it? Currently, there's no safeguards or anything in place to prevent people from walking up to your cargo at an outpost and tractoring it away. Or even easier, they can just push the button to send the cargo down the elevator and then it becomes their cargo, which, well, that's just not going to work. Obviously, they're aware of it, but at this point, they have not made any comment on what the plan is specific to green zone outposts. You can't use weapons there, so you got zero options for theft prevention. This is a really big issue, especially with the outposts becoming such a big piece of the overall trader economy, so we could use some clarity here, CIG. Somebody takes your cargo, they get a crime stat, then you gotta wait for them to leave so you can attempt to kill or disable them to recover your stuff? What if they don't leave? Or what if they just click the button to lower the elevator, automatically making your cargo theirs? There's nothing you could do at this point. The X1 is for sale in game now. It's not quite as small as a Mirai Pulse, but it just feels a little safer to operate. If you've ridden a Pulse, you know what I'm talking about. You can now halfway realize your dreams of turning your hangar into a mechanic's garage. Not really, but you can bring weapons up the freight elevator and swap them out manually. Found out pretty quick that manual labor is slower than using mobi-glass, but very much more gratifying. I tried swapping out components this way, but one, a Hercules quantum drive is about the size of the ship elevator, therefore it shall not pass to the second deck where all the components are. Don't know how that's going to work in the future. And two, if you can fit them through your ship, they do nothing. I removed the 400i power plant and nothing changed, so guess we'll have to wait for 4.0 engineering. Components also stick to the cargo grid in your ship, so that's just a little FYI throwing out there. If you haven't already heard, there's furniture you can purchase in-game that you can decorate your hangars with. I think there's about 17 pieces of chairs, tables, and couches. Not sure if it's intended or not, but they stick to the cargo grid in your ship too, so you can take that bare bones cargo grid in the back of your ship and turn it into a proper passenger ship. If you ain't got no friends to sit in them, just fill the seat with Picos. What happens currently though is when you leave the hangar, you can no longer stick the furniture on the cargo grid, so like I said, not sure if this was intended or not. I hope it stays. There's not a ton of dedicated passenger ships, so it'd be nice to have this as an option when that gameplay loop arrives. You'd be stuffing your passengers in a cargo hold without the amenities of a real passenger ship, so you couldn't charge as much, but just to be able to do it would be very cool, my friend. While we're waiting for them to address outpost security, fix the hover trolley, and smooth out the 3.24 experience, you should be deciding where you're going to make your primary residence, stacking up that Credicini Alfredo, especially if you don't have a ship capable of carrying as much cargo as you want, and developing plans for things like which ground vehicles you want at the ready in your hangar, what size and number of cargo containers will you need for each ship when you trade, and which color fanny pack you want to rock because your tight pants have rendered your pockets useless. While you sitting there plotting with the pyramid fingers of doom, take a look a little further than 324 in this vid. Big cool side of the pillow shout out to all my executive producers, Patreons, YouTube members, super chatters, and everybody showing love and supporting the Space Sim arts. My name is Dig That, and it's 95 degrees in my apartment right now. Fly dirty citizens.